So, after a few more softball questions, some social smiles and handshakes, after they dismissed her, he noted, "That seems pretty open and shut." "Yes," Miss Hernandez said, gathering coffee cups. "She'll make a reasonable addition to the building." Everyone else nodded. "Wait," Monroe said, confused. "I don't understand. She basically said she was going to come in and meddle." "She said she wanted to contribute and be friendly." More nods. "But she said, Monroe, this neighborhood is changing, has changed, whether we like it or not. Best we can do is take charge of the way we want it to happen and make sure that a chunk of cash goes to the co-op in the meantime. Maybe finally fix that elevator." Mrs. Ali from 6, always the conciliator, said soothingly, "She's a lifelong city employee. No pets, no small children. Her daughter's starting graduate school out of state. And Annie lived more than 10 years in her last place. Financially secure enough, but well within the income restrictions. It's a delicate balance finding someone who fits our requirements. And she doesn't look likely to have raucous parties. She's not obnoxious. But she's awkward. You don't have to be her best friend. We were always going to approve her." "Even after that gentrifier remark?" Ms. Hernandez said, "It was odd but true. Every time a unit sells here, it drives prices up, Monroe. That's a blessing and a curse. At least she looks to be staying for a long time." She could get a loud partner. Even that sounded a little thin to him. Screaming grandchildren. 5 pairs of eyes swiveled toward him. It occurred to him briefly, alarmingly, that these 4 women, by the roles they'd carved out for themselves in the community, were more aligned in this instance with Annie Wu than with him. "And just what do you have against grandchildren, Monroe Webb?" Annie was jogging along the cobblestone paths of Marcus Garvey Park when she spotted Monroe Webb again. The man always seemed to see Annie at her worst. First, she'd been in that plain, terrible dress she'd worn for the board interview. And then 2 days ago, she'd been wearing a pair of old cargo shorts and a paint-stained t-shirt when she'd encountered him again. Of course, he lived in graciousness and style across the hall from her. She'd been kicking a box through her doorway and wiping sweat from her neck when he appeared. And just as he paused to put in his key, her daughter, her beautiful daughter whom Annie had taught to value herself by asking for more, had said, "Ma, you should have done something about the cheap laminate floors all these apartments seem to have before you moved in. And you'll need all new appliances, of course." Monroe Webb seemed to pause and stiffen when Jenny punched the words cheap and new. "They're fine," Annie said, perhaps a tad too loudly. "It's a perfect place." But if he heard her, he didn't say anything. He opened the door just wide enough for her to catch a glimpse of the glowing light from the room, an ice blue chair, like a sculpture, standing on a pristine white rug over gleaming floors. Then the hallway was darker and empty once again. "What, Ma? I just want you to have nice things, for once." Her daughter wasn't trying to be obnoxious. She was probably worried about what her own impending move would do to Annie. Well, Annie was doing fine, although it was a relief after unpacking the most essential of essentials to go back to a routine again, to go back to running. So now, here she was, sweaty and red-faced, during her first run in days. Her t-shirt was drenched, and she kept stumbling over the unfamiliar ground of Marcus Garvey Park. But she wanted to train for a 10K, and Marcus Garvey was where Monroe Webb was apparently running too. Beautifully, of course, because she sensed that was how he did everything. It would be nice if for once he could see her looking good, because he always looked good. It wasn't that she was interested, of course. She'd dated after her divorce, but the last one had been a while ago, and she missed having sex. Not that she should contemplate starting anything with Monroe Webb. He was right across the hall, for one, and that could get messy. She planned on living in that apartment, in this community, for a long time, for the rest of her life. But even without that complication, she wouldn't get involved because, well, he so plainly did not like her at all. It was in his body language, the way his shoulders stiffened and his full lips pressed together when he saw her. In the way that, aside for that one time in the co-op board meeting, he refused to really look at her.